Welcome to the show, everybody. Joseph Robert, the fantasy football counselor. Today we're talking about 7 must-have wide receivers for fantasy football 2020. Gotta have these guys on my roster, or at least try to get some of them because I gotta have them. They're sleepers, and you can get them for amazing, amazing value. I love these guys. The upside is there. I mean, top 10 finishes potentially for most of these guys I'm going to mention here. 7 amazing must-have wide receiver sleepers. Let's get to the show. All right, guys, welcome to the show. It is mid-July. I'm getting excited for the fantasy football season. It is upon us. We're almost there, almost near the starting line or finish line, whatever you want to call it. I'm beyond excited getting into full force fantasy football mode, beast mode activated. Now, today we're going to be talking about 7 must-have wide receivers. There's a ton more wide receiver sleepers that you can get, but I wanted to have 7 must-have wide receiver sleepers here for you because I think these guys are tremendous value. I think they're tremendous they have a tremendous opportunity and they are tremendous talent. So I'm beyond excited to share this list with you guys here today. Before I get into that, I want to let you guys know that I've released it's out there. It's been out there for the past month and a half. Some people pre-ordered it. It's still a good price. Get the 16-round draft solution, guys. There's a link here below. I've pinned the comment if you're watching on YouTube. If you're in the car, I highly suggest you pull over. If you're in the shower, get out of the shower, just go to your phone, type in thefantasyfootballcounselor.com, or just type in fantasy football counselor in Google. I come up there. And go under programs and get the 16-round draft solution. Guys, I just updated it with a new mock draft in there, walking you through 16 rounds, taking you through like as if you were to draft first, as if you were to draft last in the first round, and how that'll vary based on what players are coming off, which players to avoid, sleepers, breakouts, everything in 16 rounds. Get it at thefantasyfootballcounselor.com. This is the game changer. Scrap the magazines and cheat sheets. This is the future, and I assure you guys, this is the closest you can get to bulletproof to dominate your leagues. Get it today. Also, guys, Fantasy Direct, I'm going to be texting you guys throughout the year. Waiver wire starts and sits, everything available to you guys at thefantasyfootballcounselor.com. Text Direct. Yeah, it's called Fantasy Direct. Texting you waiver wires, everything you need right to your phone throughout the season. Check that out at the website as well. I've got a link below as well. And let's answer your questions below. Leave them below as well. I try to get to as many as I possibly can. And it's very important, it helps the channel. Smash the thumbs up. It takes 1 second of your time, but really helps the channel. Please smash the thumbs up. All right, let's talk about these sleepers. I'm beyond excited. The first guy I'm going to talk about right here, right now, is Brandin Cooks. Now, I know a lot of people as soon as Brandin Cooks hits them, it's like, oh my God, this guy is injury prone. But listen, he's not. The guy actually played thoroughly all 16 games from 2015 to 2018. I know he's had some concussions, come off the field a few times, this and that. He's had that type of injury. But listen, he's passed the physical. The Texans, they said they're completely confident with him. I've read the write-ups, read all the reports from the team. He's fine. He's a veteran receiver, and the team believes in him. They said the health, not a concern, knock on wood. The guy's elite talent. He's a great player, and what really appeals to me is the fact that Hopkins is gone, and he is going to be a plug and play. There's 150 to 163 to 64 targets freed up here for Brandin Cooks. I love the opportunity. I love the talent. I love the upside. Brandin Cooks is a guy that can be fed consistently on the Texans offense with Watson. They've got elite talent to David Johnson there, distracting the defenses, maybe some stack boxes, opening things up for Cooks. Maybe Cooks could spread the offense as well for David Johnson. I think it's going to be a great combination with Cooks and Johnson. I think these guys are completely underrated. I think they're both great talent. And understand, he's a veteran receiver. He's been in the league since around 2013, 2014. The guy knows how to play football. He's going to be there for Watson. I think they're going to be an amazing connection. Now, I understand you get this guy in the 8th round, and he's technically a wide receiver 1. Fuller, not really sold on him being the guy there. Injury prone, can't stay on the field. More of a one-trick pony from what I've seen, a deep downfield threat. Whereas Cooks, also kind of known to be that deep ball guy, can be a little more versatile in that offense. So I'm beyond excited about Brandin Cooks this year, and you can get him in and around 8 and 9, round 8 and 9 in your fantasy football draft. Sometimes he falls later. People are sleeping on him. Trust me, this guy, just get him on your roster as a wide receiver 2-3. You'll be very, very happy. All right, and I talked about that in 16 rounds. You got to have a lot of depth at wide receiver. So even if you get Cooks, you're going to have a ton more talent on your bench to, if he doesn't, pan out, you can get another guy, okay? So that's my first guy. And they're no particular order in regards to the way I like them. I just think they're just 7 must-have sleeper wide receivers, okay? Next guy I want to talk about here, and I was in the fishbowl. I'm in the fishbowl. I did the draft, and I was looking at this guy, and I passed up on him. I can't remember who I got over this guy. It was another wide receiver. I think it was like DIONTAE Johnson, another wide receiver. But the guy I'm talking about here is Terry McLaurin. Now, listen, by the way, Cooks is currently sitting 36th, by the way, amongst wide receivers in the consensus rankings. McLaurin is currently sitting 22nd. I mean, that's not bad. Finished 29th in PPR last year, 93 targets, 58 receptions, 919 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Listen, the reason I like McLaurin, listen, I hate the offense of the Redskins or whatever they're going to be called, Washington, whatever, Red Tails, whatever. I don't even care. He's on Washington, okay? What I don't like is that offense. And I don't know if I trust Haskins. I've been watching some training of Haskins. He does look pretty good. He has been training, but it's a suspect offense all around. But McLaurin's a guy that by default is going to get a ton of targets. He's going to be force-fed, and he's going into his second year. I think the rapport is going to be there with him and Haskins. Listen, this guy, you can get him in and around. His ADP is slowly climbing. I'd say he can average around, ADP of 5th to 6th round. He may fall to the 6th, but I really don't see it. So him, CHARK, Hilton, guys like that coming off in and around the 5th round. McLaurin could be a guy that could be elite talent. Now, I have, the only thing that's suspect is that offense. But like I said, by default, he's going to get a ton of targets, more than the 93 he had last year. I love him. I think he's great value and a guy you could target as a fantasy football sleeper must-have. Now, I want to note here, I still got 5 more receivers here. I want to let you know, looking at these receivers, looking at these sleepers, looking at the value after the 5th round, it makes me, it reassures me that I can wait on wide receiver because there's a ton of guys. And the way I look at it is this: you're taking a risk by drafting Hopkins in the 1st round because he's on a new offense. I don't know if there's going to be enough targets. You're taking a risk with Devontae Adams. You're taking a risk with Odell and Juju in the 3rd round. You're taking a risk, but you're also taking a risk in the 5th round. It's like you're minimizing the opportunity of failure because you're loading up on running backs early with a robust RB strategy. That's what I talk about the 16 rounds. And then you're taking a risk at wide receiver later because at the end of the day, these guys are all wide receiver 1s as well on their team respectively, and they can get a ton of targets. Whereas last year, people drafted Juju round 1, Odell Beckham round 1, Devontae Adams round 1. All 3 busted based on several different reasons. Adams got hurt. Things happen, right? Juju didn't have Big Ben. Big Ben got hurt. It happens. So it's always a risk going with a wide receiver early, but at least now you're getting a wide receiver 1 or a bunch of them late, and you've already secured those running backs. Again, I talked about that in 16-round drafts, so make sure you guys click on the link below. I pinned the comment here. Get it, or head on over to thefantasyfootballcounts.com. I explain it all. Your roster is going to be as close as bulletproof as possible. All right, coming to number 3 here. Another sleeper, DJ CHARK. Now, some people are saying, well, Joe, he's not really a sleeper. He is, because you're getting him in the 5th round. That's pretty good value for technically a guy who's wide receiver 1 on his roster. 118 targets, 73 receptions last year, over 1,000 yards. He had 1,008 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns. Finished 17th last year amongst wide receivers, currently sitting 23rd on the consensus rankings. Yeah, I consider that a sleeper for a guy that is slotted to be the wide receiver 1 on his offense. I like CHARK. I'm not going to waste too much time on this. I think he's going to have a good connection there with Minshew. Jacksonville believes in Minshew. I think they got a good running game with Fournette. Fournette's got to prove himself to be a workhorse running back. He's got to play solid, so another team potentially picks him up and signs him up to a pretty decent deal. Fournette, got to eat, right? Got to play hard. I think he's going to distract the defenses. CHARK, he is kind of a red zone target. Yeah, he got some good red zone looks last year. I think that continues, but I think he's going to be integrated more in that offense. They got Laviska Shenault there as a rookie. I think he's going to be a bit of an impact player, but he's more of a gadget player, catching the ball in the backfield as well, coming in for some trick plays. But CHARK is the guy there. And again, 5th round value, not bad at all, okay? Number 4 here, everybody's sleeping on this guy. Currently sitting 39th on the consensus rankings. Finished 37th last year. Darius Slayton. I mean, this guy sitting in the late 30s here amongst wide receivers. What I like about him is the fact that he led the team in targets last year with the Giants amongst wide receivers. 83 targets, 48 receptions, 740 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Not a bad stat line for a guy who was trying to get that rapport built up with Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones now hopefully coming into his own. Improved O-line, which is really good. Hopefully, knock on wood, a healthy Saquon Barkley this year for the full season. You've got Saquon, who's hungry, who's definitely going to be distracting defenses, potentially facing some stacked boxes. Because, again, a lot of emphasis isn't going to be on the receivers because they're not top tier receivers, but Slayton's got that upside and that ceiling. A guy you can get in the 8th or 9th round who is technically a wide receiver 1 on his team. Now, you could say that Shepard is the wide receiver 1. You could say whatever you want, but Slayton has that ceiling, and you're going to get him as your wide receiver 3 on your team. Great value. Why not, right? A fantasy football sleeper must have. And again, if you're adding depth, if one of these guys doesn't work out, you're going to have depth on your roster to cover yourself, okay? Next guy here, he's a rookie sleeper. I love him. He was drafted in the first round. Let me tell you, first of all, he was drafted in the first round, 22nd overall, sitting 51st amongst wide receivers on the consensus fantasy football rankings. But when I look at that number 22 overall in the first round in the actual NFL draft, first overall pick by the Vikings, you know, this guy is a guy that the Vikings believe in, okay? I'm beyond excited about Justin Jefferson, a plug and play. Now, Diggs didn't have the greatest season last year, but if you look at his stats in 2018, Diggs had about 150 targets. That is amazing. So if you're looking at a guy that's going to get a ton of volume, it's going to be Jefferson. Played in LSU, got a ton of volume there, got a ton of work, and now going into the NFL, how is that going to translate? It's going to be interesting. He is a dynamic playmaker. He makes some amazing catches in the red zone. He can make some tricky catches as well. Now, he had Burrow throwing to him, which you could say, is he getting an upgrade at quarterback with Cousins? I think so. I think he's going to be doing just fine there. And again, a guy you can get super great value. You can get this guy after the 9th round, okay? Like literally, like amazing value. Sitting 51st amongst wide receivers, a guy that could be a plug and play. Now, again, I'm not sold on rookie wide receivers coming out of the gate, but again, as a wide receiver 4 on your team, why not? I mean, plug and play for this guy, okay? And I think this is the year where a ton of wide receivers could actually step up, okay? Guys like Claypool, maybe Pittman, rookie wide receivers that could stay up, make an impact the first year. Now, a lot of people are focused on the obvious, Jerry Jeudy, but I think Judy's going to be in a bit of a committee there. CeeDee Lamb, both these guys, technically the wide receiver, 2-3s on their roster. For example, CeeDee Lamb, they've got Gallup and Cooper, right? I don't trust CeeDee Lamb seeing a ton of volume, so you got to be careful with those guys. Whereas Jefferson, he's a direct plug and play. There's not much competition there for him. So you got to be sneaky when you're looking at rookie wide receivers, okay? And again, 16-round draft, so should I explain that all? Next guy here, absolutely love this guy. I'm actually giddy about this guy. Beyond excited about him. DIONTAE Johnson. What I love about him is that Big Ben is coming back. I mean, that is huge. Last year, 92 targets, 59 receptions, 680 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And I watched a lot of tape on him, a lot of breakdown, and Mason Rudolph was missing him on some easy passes. He could have actually he led in receptions, I believe, amongst rookies. But the thing is, he could have actually done a lot better than last year because Big Ben wasn't there, and he still had a pretty decent stat line amongst rookie wide receivers. Now, what is suspect about him is, of course, a little bit of his, some drop balls. But again, I don't think that was his fault. I think that was Mason Rudolph. There is some question marks about route running, but what he is amazing. When I watch tape about him, after he catches the ball, he can make plays, and of course, he can make those defenders miss. And that's what's really unique about him. So when he gets that ball, making defenders miss, we're going to have to see his route running. We're going to have to see how he does all around, how well he plays with Big Ben in full integration there. So again, I watched tape on him. He looks like a dynamic playmaker. He looks elite. Again, route running tree, a little bit suspect. We're going to have to see. But again, a part of his failures, drop passes a little bit, couple drop balls, missed passes. It was, again, Mason Rudolph not putting it on target, and the quarterbacks that were there last year not putting it on point for DIONTAE Johnson. So again, I'm really, really excited to see what he does this year, sitting 42nd on the consensus rankings. A guy that could potentially finish, yes, top 10 amongst wide receivers. We saw it last year or 2 years ago with Big Ben, making Juju and Antonio Brown both top 10 receivers, 168 targets to Antonio and 166 targets to Juju. DIONTAE could technically be the wide receiver one. If Juju lines up in the slot, you got Claypool and DIONTAE on the outside. Going to be very interesting to see how this offense works with a healthy Big Ben. Beyond excited. And when I look at wide receivers, I look at who's throwing the ball, and I look at opportunity and volume, and DIONTAE is primed for a ton of volume and opportunity. Not sold on guys like James Washington. I think DIONTAE is the guy. All right, next guy who's sitting 63rd on the consensus rankings, which is crazy, is Allen Lazard. Now, last year he played 12 games, 52 receptions, 52 targets, 32 receptions, 477 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And again, a lot of these guys are not high on the consensus, and they are must-have wide receiver sleepers is because they didn't put an amazing stat lineup last year. And that's the problem with the consensus. They're not looking and projecting forward. They're copying and pasting where they finished last year and projecting them to be similar. And they're not thinking outside the box. And that is the problem. That is why people lose their leagues, because they're not thinking. Now, Allen Lazard is slated as the wide receiver too. Remember last year, everyone's high on MVS and Geronimo Allison, and they both kind of busted, and Allison's no longer there. Well, everyone was drafting MVS early, Valdez-Scantling very early. Now, if you look at Lazard, he's technically the wide receiver too. The Packers did not draft another wide receiver because they believe in Lazard. Now, he had a couple breakout games last year, which shows us there's some upside there. Now, if I can get this guy as my wide receiver 5 as a late round pick bench stash, why not? He's a wide receiver 2 on an amazing offense with Aaron Rodgers. Why wouldn't I do it? I'm definitely going to do it. He's a must-have sleeper. And again, the Packers believe in him. They did not acquire anybody else. I'm going to draft Lazard super late and maybe plug him in as a flex. We're going to have to see what happens there. But Rodgers, obviously a chip on his shoulder. Everyone's saying he's washed up, this and that. I think he's going to be fine. I love Lazard this year, guys. And he's a must-have wide receiver sleeper. Target him late. So there you have it, guys. Brandin Cooks, Terry McLaurin, DJ Shark, Darius Slayton, Justin Jefferson, Deontay Johnson, and Allen Lazard. Must-have sleepers, great talent, great opportunity, great situations, great quarterbacks throwing to them, and you can get them for great value. This is going to help you guys target some of these guys, stash them. You're going to be very, very happy with these guys. I assure you, they're primed for big seasons, okay? Make sure you guys get the 16-round draft solution at thefantasyfootballcounselor.com, link below. You'll be very happy with it. The future of fantasy is here. Get it below. Smash a thumbs up. It helps the channel a lot. Leave your fantasy questions below. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for being here. We go year-round. Subscribe, and I am out.